Okay guys, how was that midterm test? I hope it wasn't too hard and I hope you did fairly well. Anyhow guys, this is module 6 and this is lesson 11 and we're going to be taking a look at writing activities. And of course we're going to get started with our aims of the lesson first. So our first aim for today's class guys is we are going to discuss controlled writing activities and we're going to look at some examples. Alright, so there are lots of different examples of controlled writing activities. I believe we're going to take a look at 4. Okay, getting into our second aim guys, what we got here is that we're going to try to learn how to help our students transition from doing controlled writing activities to doing something we call freer writing activities. This transition can be difficult for a lot of students, so we're going to take a look at some strategies that can help us help our students. Okay, and our third aim for today's lesson guys is that we're going to be taking a look at something called oral prep or oral preparation and eliciting. This one is really tough, but don't worry if you don't understand it, because actually in the next lesson afterwards we're going to talk about eliciting in more detail. Anyhow guys, so those are our aims. I hope you're ready and feeling refreshed. Let's go in a few more seconds. Okay guys, so before we get into controlled writing activities first, I would like to talk about writing as a skill and how useful it is. Now, if we think of our 4 main skills when it comes to learning a language, what we've got of course is writing, speaking, listening, and reading, right? Now, if I ask you guys right now how important writing is to you, I'm guessing a lot of you would say out of the 4 skills, writing is probably the least important, right? Now that's not true for everybody. For some people out there, writing might be a really important skill to develop. And I believe that writing really is useful, right? But I think when it comes to the 4 major skills, I think a lot of people believe that speaking and listening are far more important, right? And then after that, probably reading's more important. And lastly comes writing. However, writing activities can be really great, right? Because writing activities are often slower than speaking activities, reading activities, and also listening activities, right? So because writing activities are done at a slower pace, it gives students time to focus on the meaning of what they're writing, right? It also helps them remember vocabulary and structures that they had learned before, right? So it really helps to focus their attention and bring up a lot of vocabulary. So even though writing might be the least important out of the 4 major skills, writing activities are really great because they focus our students' attention and they get them to focus on vocabulary and structures. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. We're going to take a short break and we're going to take a look at one more thing before we take a look at some examples of controlled writing activities. Okay guys, one more thing I want to talk about before we get into controlled writing activities is copying, right? Now, a lot of times in class, you're going to need to write something important on the board, of course, right? And students are going to need to copy it down. However, you don't want to do this all the time. Now, let's look at my example here. We've got Brian goes to school every day. He takes a shower at 7:30, eats breakfast at, let's say, I don't know, 8 o'clock. Then Brian goes to school, blah, blah, right? So I've written all this stuff on the board and I've asked my students to copy, right? Of course, that's fine. However, there must be a better way to make copying more meaningful, right? Because right now, this is very, what? Do you guys remember previously we talked about meaningful practice and mechanical practice? I hope you guys can remember that. Anyhow, copying is very mechanical, right? But there is a way that we could make this better. What could we do in order to make this better? Let's think of some ideas. Okay, well, one simple thing we could do here, I'm just gonna grab a marker, ta-da, is that we could make blanks. That's nice and simple. It's not hard for you. It's not hard for the students, right? And because you got blanks and students will have to guess what goes in the blank, or they're gonna have to listen to you, it makes them focus more on the meaning of what is actually written on the board. Another thing we could do is give them a summary. So what you could do instead of giving them blanks, you could give them a shortened version of what you would like them to copy down, right? And instead they have to kind of complete it and, you know, make it full. So give them a summary instead of, you know, giving them blanks. But what else could we do? If possible, instead of writing something on the board, this is really tough for me, I'm not gonna do this, but maybe for you guys you can, is draw a picture. Draw a picture, right? Maybe they can figure out what that picture means instead of having them copy it down. This is something I'm seriously not going to do because I'm really bad at drawing, but maybe you can. All right, another quick thing we could do here is, and I think this would be kind of interesting, but you could have students listen to you and do, and this is a tough one, do dictation. Now I'm pretty sure everybody here knows what dictation is, right? And that's when they're listening to the teacher or they're listening to some kind of tape or something recorded and they have to write down as fast as they can and try to copy everything down. Dictation is something that we're going to be talking about later. It can be really, really tough for some students and also for some teachers, but anyhow, we're going to talk about that one later. Okay guys, so these are just 4 examples of things you could do to make copying focus more on the meaning, right? I just wanted to mention that really quickly before we get into controlled writing activities, which we're going to get into in just a second. Okay guys, so I've got 2 examples of controlled writing activities on the board here. These are from activity 1. You guys can see them in your book at home. Anyhow guys, so I've got these 2 on the board. The first one is called gap filling. Now, gap filling is actually kind of like mini dictation, because what you're going to do here if you're the teacher is you're going to read out the full sentence and then you're going to have students fill it in, of course, right? So I want to do this with you guys and I want you guys actually to try at home. I'm going to read this out and I would like you guys to try to fill in these gaps or fill in these blanks. Are you guys ready? No? Are you ready now? Okay, great. All right, so paper is usually made of wood. It was invented by the Chinese in the 1st century AD. Did you catch it? No? One more time. Should I read slower or faster the second time? I think I read pretty slowly the first time. I'm going to read a little bit faster this time. Okay guys, here we go again. Paper is usually made of wood. It was invented by the Chinese in the 1st century AD. Alright guys, so I hope you caught that. Just in case you didn't, I'm going to fill it out here though. So, paper is usually made of wood. Paper is usually made of wood. Second sentence. It was invented by the Chinese in the 1st century AD. Ooh, that was so fast, right? But here we go. It was invented by the Chinese in, did you catch the last part? In the 1st century AD. Okay, so there we go guys. That was just a very quick example of one controlled writing activity that we call gap filling. I recommend that if you do this with your class in the future, you should read it twice, right? Maybe the first time you can read a little bit quickly or at a regular pace, second time read a little bit slower, or do it the other way around, right? Your choice, depends on your class. Okay, so that's A, gap filling. Let's take a look at what we got in B here. Now this one, honestly, it looks kind of tough, right? And this one is called reordering words. Now,